Hi, everybody. I've had some questions about hopelessness relating to news reports of actions that have been taken that are clearly out of absolute desperation. Someone at their absolute end, with apparently no other way to turn, taking an action that in any other state or circumstance would be unthinkable. And how does that fit with this? Um, well, yeah, I think first of all, I think it fits in that there go there, but for the grace of God go I, with these actions that are taken that go all of us, and we might look on them in horror or outrage or disapproval or condemnation, but we all, every single one of us, maybe even daily, have our equivalent in which there doesn't seem to be any other possibility other than this. And yes, it might be far more mundane and ordinary and inconsequential than some of the dramatic actions that are taken, but nevertheless, it's the same in that sometimes the way things appear is so unquestionable that it only gives course for one action. And it doesn't, who knows what that action is, but what we're interested in is the crowding in, really, of constraints and circumstances and emotions like exhaustion and confusion and desperation that point only to one action, and it's an escape action. It has to be, doesn't it? The only way out is through this, and it might be to ourselves or to another, but that this is the only escape. And what we have to acknowledge is that given that reality, that makes the total sense, makes absolute sense, that action. And if we were in that reality, we would do the same thing. Sam Harris's book, Free Will, talks of a murder committed, and how if we had lived every aspect of the life that murderers had lived, we would have done the same thing. There would have been no choice, because at every stage, what's learned, what's acquired, what view of the self, what view of the world, what view of possibilities or obstacles or doors closed would it dictates the action. And so hopelessness and helplessness it's a state of reality, isn't it? Where there doesn't seem any other possibility, and it's for all of us, that whenever there's this is the only thing possible, and it's a form of cry or desperation, then it's the same. We're the same. We are the people in the news. There's no difference, and so that already is a reminder of our humanity, isn't it? Of our our sameness. And so already that takes us away from that judgment, that condemnation, into a place of understanding. And then how can this conversation help ensure that those levels of hopelessness and desperation are no longer reached, are no longer this valid reality? Well, it seems to me it begins in the way all sanity begins, by turning life into a question. And so all experience, all living, all existence, all interaction, all circumstance becomes a question of what is true, what's real, what am I, who are they, and then it will start earlier then, when we're at the very end point. When we're at the very end point and there really doesn't seem to be any other options, maybe at that point the mind isn't so able to, maybe there's just no space for that question, then the exhaustion is so enormous. But prior to that, this daily life that we're living, this daily existence of things that arise that limit us, that seem to cut off opportunities, that close us in, that mean we withdraw, that narrow our world, that mean we're less immersed, we're less engaged, we're less inquiring. These daily occurrences, in fact, any moment of suffering, we could say any moment of withdrawal or contraction or resistance, contains in it the opportunity to really question what is causing that resistance or that withdrawal. What limitation is being believed in that moment? What distance between ourself and the world is being believed? And that movement. So instead of taking the suffering as evidence of the rightness of withdrawing or pushing away, instead is moving deeper into inquiry as to what is really going on there. Bit by bit, that is wobbling the wobbling this possibility of our lives becoming more and more fragile and dependent on or hemmed in by beliefs and by concepts and fears and shame and needs. It opens it all up. Sorry, I had to pause then. Yes, it starts to wobble this landscape that we live in, which is limited and constrained and ultimately hopeless, because we're fighting what we're fighting a battle that can't be won there. And yeah, because however bleak the circumstances are, whatever the actual physical constraints, the greater the mental freedom and mental in a way, what can fall away are the constraints that are constructions of the mind, and what remains are the actual physical constraints that just cannot be overcome. That there are no other options. The falling away of the mental constraints allows the absolute ultimate exploration of the physical constraints, doesn't it? But the mental constraints, the mental blocks to freedom, these shames and needs and fears which would hold out, sorry, everything's happening, which would hold expansion back, those are the things that can fall away when they're looked at. And so it's not denying that there are very real and enormously challenging circumstances. And it seems to be that this conversation is the means in which those are seen as cleanly as they possibly can be, not shrouded with all the mental confusion that can come with a misunderstanding of what's real. And in that cleanness, the cleanness opens up possibility, because it's actual reality then that we're dealing with, not the layers and layers of belief that are created around it. So yeah, so we are all those people, aren't we? We all have our own areas of confusion and delusion, and this conversation is the ultimate bringer of sanity and realism and possibility. Yeah. So much love to you all. Bye.